seniors? Thank you all for coming out today to listen to our discussion panel. As you know, this is part of our English 12 final unit for the quarter, where we're looking at community exploration, at different issues in our communities, or ways that we can take things that are going well in our communities and make them even better. We are very lucky today to have 6 panelists here. Go ahead and give them a hand for coming in. As you can see on the sheet that I gave you, Miss Lee was out sick today, and so Mr. Brumbaka, our athletic director, graciously stepped in on her behalf. I'm going to have them go down the line and just introduce themselves and tell them a little bit about, tell you all a little bit about who they are and what they do.
Hi, my name is Julie Nakayama, and I run a nonprofit out of my home called Julie's Purse Project. What I do is I collect new and gently used purses that women have sitting in the back of their closets that they don't use anymore. And I fill them up with essential items like tampons and hair ties and condoms and makeup and jewelry and things that women would want in their purse if they were homeless or starting over with nothing. I've distributed over 37,000 purses to the local Sacramento area.
Hey, good morning. My name is Abe. I'm the owner of Road Barbershop. I don't, sorry, but my barbershop, we also spend a lot of time with community outreach and trying to make sure that we are supporting our community as well.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me? My name is Julia Cochran, and I own a company that actually manages nonprofit associations. Today, I'll be talking about one of our programs, which is the Renew program. It is a program that teaches women facing homelessness, either currently experiencing homelessness or having housing insecurity, how to become property managers so that they can get a job in housing, because a lot of times at apartment communities, you have to have an on-site manager, so the job comes with housing. So trying to solve 2 problems at once.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sergeant Graham. I am the Marine Corps representative for the Elk Grove area, your school Sheldon and Monterey Trail. What I do, as you guys can see me walking around some of these days, is basically find young men and women that may not have a stable plan or foundation to build off of, and provide them different outlooks and ways to get there.
Good morning. My name is Christy Jordan. I'm with Chalk It Up to Sacramento. Where are my artists at? What? That's right. Chalk It Up has a mission to empower the next generation of artists, and you can read our mission on our website. But really what we want to do is shine a light on artists and creatives and the creative economy and the people that make this community so magical by giving of their talent. We also want to make sure that we can help art teachers have some funding to do cool things that aren't included in their minimal budgets from the schools. Thank you.
And good morning, Jason Bombaka. I am the athletic director here at Sheldon High School. I've been in education for 20 years, 11 of those years as an athletic director. And yeah, that's where I'm gonna go for now. Thanks.
So as you know, I have a series of questions that we'll go through. I'll ask each question to the panel and they can answer it in the order that they would choose. As audience members, you're going to be taking notes on your sheets, so make sure that you have that out to take notes. And then also, if you have questions, you're going to jot those down, because at the end, if we have time, you'll have an opportunity to ask those as well. All right, so to our panel, our first question: what inspired you to get involved in your local community? Whoever wants to go first can grab their mic and go.
I'll go. So mine, it wasn't necessarily intentional. I used to volunteer once a year on Thanksgiving. I would go with my friends and we would help feed Thanksgiving to families in need. And then I had a baby, and I realized when my kid was 14 months old that I couldn't go scoop cranberries for 5 hours. And I saw a Facebook post, and it said, if you have a purse you're not using, fill it up and give it to the next lady you see. I don't think 37,000 later that was really I took it and ran with it, but it wasn't an original idea. It was just a concept I happened to come across but I wanted to give back, and I've learned through this that people really want to help those in need. You just have to provide the avenue, and Purses became an avenue. So I think there's a lot of ways that you can kind of get inspired by a little thing and then take it into something greater.
I think for myself, kind of like you, it was not what I set out to do. Initially for me, I just wanted to find a way of paying my rent. And once I actually got into the field of barbering, that's when I realized that there was an opportunity for me to give back to my community, the one that's been helping me so far.
For me, the program, I was also inspired by another program that started in San Diego, and one of the associations and nonprofits that my company manages trains property managers who are in that field. And so once I heard there was a program like this, that you could train people who are not in the field and then provide that housing element and a job, I thought I could do that because, I think that's a good takeaway is that you can use the skills you already have and the connections you already have to solve problems because there's limitless problems to be solved. And as somebody who's always trying to fix things, once I heard about that program in San Diego, I thought I can use my network in Sacramento and do that. And, I was inspired to do it better and change it, right? And use your network to create something that can really make positive change and lasting change.
Long story short, I had an upbringing where helping the community was always a part of my job. Starting at 7 years old, I started off in a scouting program all the way up to when I became an Eagle Scout. For my project, what I did was I built a food shelter to give back to the community to help people that are not in positions where they can help themselves. And just seeing those smiles on their faces, being able to help the community, give back to them, and have them feel appreciated, right? That made me want to take this, worldwide to do what I do now, humanitarian efforts, going around and helping those people in those positions that feel like they feel vulnerable. I love being that shield for them to provide help, comfort, and provide a future.
I have always felt a draw to be of service to my community because I walk outside and I look around and I think, what would I like to be better? What could be better here and how can I help? And not just how can I help, but how can I get all my friends and family to join with me to help solve this problem? And honestly, it's when I became a parent, so I've always kind of had that feeling, and when I became a parent, I looked at the world through a completely different lenses. And that's when I felt, not should I, but I must find a way to help to make the world better. And that's what got me involved in community service.
So for me, it was when I was younger, I saw the adults around me through youth sports and other avenues that gave back, and they were giving their time to coach kids that were not their kids. Some coaches didn't even have kids on the team, and they were coaching. And so, kind of going through my life, I'm at a point now in my life where I realize that I have a one-word kind of motto, I guess you would say, and it is serve. My motto is to serve, and I started serving when I was in high school. I was still playing high school sports, and I was going back to the Pop Warners and coaching. I was going to the Little Leagues and helping coach. So I was playing and coaching at the same time. And then going through, and that's just going through college. I played sports as well through college, and really kind of just that solidified for me what I wanted to do in life, and that was to be a coach, be a teacher, give back to my community. And then as an athletic director, my goal is to serve, all the student athletes on this campus and to try to better, their total enrichment of their high school life.
Thank you. In listening to this, it sounds like all of you have, that you looked out into your communities, you saw needs, and you wanted to attack those, whether it was from the time you were children or something that you saw as adults. And so that's really appreciated. The next question that we're moving into is two parts. So we'll do the first part. It's what's the most rewarding aspect of giving back to your local community, and what are the most challenging aspects? So first we'll look at the rewarding aspects. So what are things that are rewarding in giving back to your local community?
I think one of the most rewarding things is I found a viable and tangible way to give back to the community. There's the physical side of it. There's the actual purse with the items in there, which can be very useful. You can walk into your next job interview with confidence. But there's also a message, and it's a business card. It goes in every purse, but it says, "I care about your situation. I wish you peace, safety, and the kindness of strangers." And for me, that's a really huge part of it. It's just finding a way to get that message to people, that there are people out there that really do care about your situation that you're in. And the purse, you know, it might be a little simple thing, but there are some people out there that some of the recipient feedback I get, it's a lot more than just a purse. It's confidence, it's empowerment, it's the message that somebody cares.
There's more joy in giving than receiving. I fully believe that, and I know for myself, the most joy I've actually received is in seeing the gratitude in the face of the people that I've been able to assist in one way or another, and that honestly is probably better than any other reward you can get, is just knowing that you've been able to play a part in someone else actually being able to have something or do a little bit better, or maybe it's just a slightly better day. That ultimately for me is my goal, is just to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make anyone's situation at least a little bit better than it was before.
For me, with the program that we do, we're creating generational change a lot of times. And what I mean by that is a lot of the women that go through our program have children. And so our program's 6 weeks long. It's an intensive educational program that they go through, and they have to pass a 100-question exam at the end to graduate the program. They have to get 80% or higher, not 50 or 60, 80% or higher on that exam. And I have women in that program who are living in their car and having to study at night by flashlight. I have had people living in shelter environments with their children, and then once they graduate and they get a job in property management, and then they come back and they say, I have a home now. I live in an apartment community. My kids have a room. We're not living in a shelter anymore. It changes their children's lives too. So for me, I think that's the most rewarding thing about our program is, yes, I mean, we're changing the women's lives, but it really creates a whole cycle of generational change.
Everybody joins or does something for a different reason, but one of the most rewarding parts about my career right now, giving back to the community, is seeing the transformation between a young adult, a young woman, a young man that may have stuff kind of figured out or does not have anything figured out, seeing them change and come back to something better than what they were or what they had, whether that's financially, whether that's becoming that leader they want to for their family, for their friends, being that inspiration, being that voice of physical change, mental change, and that mental fortitude to continue to challenge themselves, to continue on whatever path that is, whether that's education, whether that's becoming financially stable to be able to support their family, so on and so forth. Just the change in the environment to give back.
What I've noticed that we all have in common is we have these big missions to do these big, great things, but where we find joy is in these personal connections, these individual stories. And I find the same thing. When I can provide funding for an art teacher who has an idea of a project they would like to do and they just don't have the funds for it, I get a lot of joy out of that. When I have a person from the community call me and say, we'd like to hire some artists to do some work or hire musicians, do you know people? Oh yeah, I know the artist community, I know the musician community. I love to find someone a paid gig in that world. So I feel similarly that we have this, when you can reduce our big mission down to helping one or a small group, that is really meaningful. And then are we touching on challenges now too? Because not yet? Okay, I have some.
I think we all do. So, rewarding part of my aspect is success, the successes, right? Whether they're big or small. Those, like we've talked about too, is the small changes, right? Just watching young people grow up to become adults and giving back into community, showing back up at Sheldon High School and telling me about their lives and what they're doing and how they're doing. And I've had student athletes that don't make grades and they fall off the team and they come back, and it's maybe their senior year or their junior year and they struggle throughout, or they barely are pushing that 2.0 envelope to play. And then I see them as adults and they're working and they're living and they have a family and they come back and they're part of the community and they get back and, whether they say thanks or not, I mean, it's just something that in my eyes, like watching them grow up or watching you guys grow up and then being successful in life. And again, whatever that success looks like for yourself and for your families, that is what is the joy that brings myself, and I guarantee you all your teachers as well.
Thank you. And I think the next part is a really important part of the conversation, because as you all are getting ready to do your projects and are thinking about ways that you can make a positive impact in your community, we do it because of the things all of our panelists just said, right? Because we feel that sense of accomplishment, of pride, of giving back. But along that path, there can also be challenges that might feel like they hinder us or get in the way or make things difficult. And that's not the time to quit. That's the time we push through and find new ways to make adjustments. And so the next part of the question to our panelists is, what are some of the challenges? And I'm going to add on, what kinds of things might you do to address those challenges when you come across them?
I can say one of the biggest challenges for me is this is not a lucrative endeavor by any means. This is a passion project. I do it because it makes me feel good, it makes other people feel good, and it's challenging because it's expensive. I have nonprofit insurance, I have business cards and flyers and marketing materials and gas for distribution. There's limited resources, so I have to ask. Everything I get is donated, so whether it's monetary or the items. I have a storage unit to pay for. I think one of the biggest challenging things for me would be burnout and sustainability of the project. I need to be able to find the time to write grants. There's potential here, but it's just me with a lot of volunteer help. So I think that one of the biggest challenges is just figuring out how to make this sustainable. I've given up the idea that it's ever going to be really lucrative, but I need to maintain enough money coming in to just maintain the basics of it, which I found to be a challenge. Nobody really wants to work for free.
For myself, I feel like one of the biggest challenges is not making assumptions, being curious enough to find out or learn more about someone else. It's easy to automatically assume you know someone or know their life, or that person looks scary, I should stay away from them. It's harder to put aside whatever instinctive assumptions you may have about people or instinctive assumptions you may have about people's actions, and keep that curiosity long enough to actually learn about them and learn what challenges they may be going through. I found that when I keep myself in that mindset, I'm able to learn more about other people and also humanize them in a way that then makes it possible for me to actually want to be around them and want to actually assist.
For me, that 6-week program, it's really intense. We put those women, the students that we have, they're adults, but they're still students, and we put them through an intense program, and our goal, sure, is that they pass the program, but really the goal is that they get that housing, right? That was the whole point of the program, is that they get that job in housing. But I'm only in charge of the 6 weeks. So I can be totally locked in, I could have everything lined up, I could have all our volunteer instructors, and we provide food, and we do headshots, and we do all these things, and it can be great, and then at the end of the 6 weeks they graduate, and I never hear from them again. And that burnout that you mentioned, Julie mentioned, it is a real thing, because you can pour a lot of yourself into a program like this and have 10 graduates and one of them gets a job and gets the housing, because not all of them pursue those next steps on their own. We like to say we don't give a hand out, we give a hand up, but they are responsible for taking those next steps. And so the way that we combat that, is we really try and focus on those success stories, because otherwise it's very easy to just feel defeated when you're not getting 100% of your students graduated and in housing and change all these lives. Because the goal is 100%. So when you get 1 or 2, it can be really disheartening. So you really have to focus on the positive.
The most challenging aspect of, I'm not going to say job, but career field, right, is the whole process from finding that young man or woman that may be coming from an environment that even I may not find myself comfortable in, teaching, tutoring, mentoring, and being that voice or inspiration to help drive action to change something in their life, so they do not become a part of the environment which they do not feel comfortable in, preparing them for the training ahead of them or preparing them for the jobs they have coming up. Because a lot of younger men and women do not feel inspired, do not have that drive, do not have an adult or a leader or somebody to look up to and motivate them to tell them, hey, just because it's challenging does not mean you cannot do it. The first step is to take the first step. So basically just helping them along the way to finding that path and taking those steps.
Kind of to echo something that Julie said, nobody likes to talk about what it costs to run a nonprofit organization. And it's just like running a business. You have to pay to have a website and insurance and at the very least a P.O. box, if not some sort of location. Julie's operating out of her house and out of a storage unit. We rent a very small office space and have storage. And it's hard to ask for donors for money so you could pay for administrative costs. That is a real challenge. People want to feel the impact of their donations or their gifts. So if someone donates $100 to my nonprofit, they would like to know that all of it gets right back out to the community. That is just not possible. There is a cost to do what we do. And our organization is all volunteer. I have embarked upon a plan to strengthen this organization by raising funds so that we can hire a part-time, professional, equitably paid executive director to run our organization. That's the only thing that's going to keep it going for another 35 years. And that is a reality that a lot of times people don't like to think about with nonprofit work. There are administrative costs. The other challenge we have is getting the word out. We've been in the Sacramento area for 35 years. Everybody's seen images of the festival with the chalk on the sidewalks, but getting the word out on all of the other work we do. I mean, I am on the phone with art teachers from all over the region all the time saying, we have money to give. What kind of projects are you working on? We're looking for things to fund. That's not as much of a challenge now because I got a big mouth, but that has been a challenge, sharing our mission.
I would say the challenge on my side would be just kind of the whole recruitment process for both adults that are like-minded as far as them leading into the community and giving back to the community in a positive manner, and then also the youth coming out for sports, for activities. Getting them out of their comfort zone and their shell to come join some things that maybe are a little bit, again, out of their comfort zone. So, and again, another one would be just that time aspect, and the burnout, right? That's kind of goes hand in hand, right? You have people giving back to the community that are working 9-to-5 jobs and then are coming and showing up and running baseball practices, soccer practices, whatever, and giving 2 hours or hour to 2 hours of their time to run that. A lot of times it benefits their children, but they don't only just coach their child; they're coaching all the children that are on the team. So everybody benefits, but it's just that time aspect because now, if you have a family of your own and you're not getting home until 7, 8 o'clock at night, and you haven't eaten dinner, and your kids haven't done homework and all that good stuff, so. That's what I would say probably is some of the biggest challenges.
Thank you. I really appreciate you all sharing the more difficult parts of community work and community outreach. In yesterday's lesson in class, we talked about leadership, right? Leadership traits, leadership skills, leadership qualities. So our next question to the panel is, what are skills that you have found helpful in your role as a leader in your community?
Well, for me, I have never been accused of being shy or quiet. So I have no problem asking for things. And I've learned the answer is always no if you don't ask. 37,000 purses taught me that. But I think being just able to delegate is also another really big thing. I did not fill up all these purses by myself. That would cause burnout real quick. I think out of 5,500 purses that were filled last year, I probably did less than 100 because I have good party planning skills. So I have events. I'm having an event this Sunday. You're all invited, but you can come and help fill purses. And that's how I get it done, is I've got good delegating skills. I'm not scared to ask for help when I need it. And when I ask for help, I'm pretty effective at getting it. So this weekend, I'm going to have 50 people come out. We're going to fill probably 800 to 1,000 purses. And then that's, it's being organized, but learning how to ask for help and just learning how to ask, because the answer is always no if you don't.
I think it's important to have good listening skills. A lot of times we assume we know what's going on or we know how someone else is feeling, but until you actually truly listen to people, you're always going to miss what's actually going on with them.
For me, I'm in kind of a different or unique situation because I do own a company that is for-profit that manages nonprofits. I've been doing this for 20 years. My dad still does not know what I do. So it's very confusing for people. It's a job people don't know exists, but I own an association management company and we run corporate events and fundraisers, right? So a nonprofit can contract with us, my team, I have 15 people, and we will run their big fundraiser, their big crab feed or whatever to raise money for their nonprofit. But it goes back to Christy, what she said, with our biggest competition is volunteers. That sounds counterintuitive. We want volunteers, but a lot of times people don't understand the skills that are needed to be an executive director, to run an association. I'm a certified association executive. I've taken hundreds of hours of training to get that certification. My team is all trained on association law and how to take minutes at a board meeting and all these things people don't even know exist because they just want to do the good thing. We want to help the community. But like she said, they donate $100. They don't want to think that it goes to our pay. That volunteers should do that. But somebody needs to be in charge of that ship, right? So one of the skills I will say in addition to that, though, is networking is very important in community building and leading. And as an introvert, which is also rare because typically people who run nonprofits are extroverts and they're totally comfortable on the microphone. They're totally comfortable like going out and asking for money. I am not comfortable doing that, and I have to overcome that every time. This right now, very scary, okay? But I'm here, and because I want to share. But I've had to overcome that, and there's ways to be an introvert and still be good at networking, because the bigger your network that you build, the more people you can reach out to solve all these problems that you want to solve, right? So you do need to still go out and put yourself out there, but you don't have to be an extrovert to build a community and a network. There are ways to do it. You'll be drained after you go to those events and you'll want to be alone for a little while, but then you get back out there and you do it again. And so I would just say don't rely on the fact, oh, I'm an introvert, or I can't do that. I can't ask for money. I don't like when people tell me no. Suck it up, buttercup, and go back out there and do it again. But then realize that there are skills that you have as an introvert that you can build on. Because introverts tend to listen and pick up on the little details and remember the name of your pet and come back out and send a thank you note and things like that, there's strengths in both sides. I think a lot of times introverts are told to be more extroverted. Play with strengths that you have.
So there are many skills that I've brought to the table and a lot of skills that I've learned over time, but one of the more important skills I've learned is just listening with a purpose. Just listening to what they have going on or what's actually going on, hearing the community out, hearing that person out, and not treating them as if they're just another person. Actually being able to sit down and mentor them and show them and give them those experiences that they may have not seen. Hey, I'm going through this right now, and I'm actually listening. I'm taking time out of my day, away from the family, away from friends, to sit down and actually care about what you have going on. And another skill is just being a leader, being able to take those people out of those communities and lead them and guide them, show them the different paths that are available to them to help work through the community, whether that's assisting a community outreach service or whether that's assisting the Red Cross, whether that's helping out and volunteering at certain events and different events that may not have what they need available to them, to show them before they even join service, hey, you can still help your community, you can still give back, you could still be a mentor, you can still be a leader from whatever environment you're coming from.
One of the things that I have learned that I didn't always have was to let things go and trust a team. So if I ask you to come and take on a particular task for me, we discuss, I make sure you understand the task, and then I'm gonna let that person cook. That has, as a person who wants to micromanage everything, that's been a big learning curve for me, but it's been really valuable, and the feedback I get from people who feel trusted to do the things that I've asked them to do, it helps me understand how meaningful that is on the other side of that conversation. So learning to trust other people on their team to do the work that you've empowered them to do has been real important learning for me as a leader.
I have a lot. Let's see, empathy, compassion, conflict resolution. That's some of the just time management, organizational skills, learning how to be a boss. And the last one I would probably say is a lifelong learner.
All right, thank you. And a lot of the things that you all brought up are things that they read about yesterday and watched in an interview. So that's really helpful to hear that echoed from real life experience. Our last question for the panel as a whole, what advice do you have for students about ways that they can get involved in their local communities? Because again, they're about to go write an action plan and then take that action in the second half of the class. So any advice would be wonderful.
So ways to get involved, start small. Like I picked a little thing and expanded on it. Like I was just thinking this morning on different ideas. It's like, well, everybody shops for school supplies for kids at the beginning of the school year, but my kids, a couple months in, are already out of pencils. It's like there's ongoing needs in the community. There's little things. You could do your own purse drive. You could put it on your next door. You could help me out with that. There's a million ways to get involved. I always think back to what Mr. Rogers said, something about look for the helpers in times of trouble. And through working in the nonprofit world, I've learned that the helpers are very interconnected. If I go volunteer for one organization or you come and volunteer for my organization, you're gonna meet people from different organizations because the helpers are the ones out there helping. So it's very interconnected. I think just start anywhere and see who you meet there because you're gonna meet somebody that's doing something that you might find interesting.
So everybody on this panel, everyone is actually passionate about what they're doing, but not everybody would be passionate about doing what the other person is doing. So my advice would actually be try a little bit of everything. And while you're doing that, you might realize, you know what, I do have a passion for collecting purses, or I do have a passion for art, or even for leadership in other ways. So don't be afraid of actually trying things and exploring and actually getting to know your community more than whatever your little bubble may be at the moment. You might realize that there's actually a bigger world out there that has a whole lot of unique needs that only you or a small faction of people like you can actually facilitate. I never met anybody who actually collects purses and then donates it to the community before until today. That blows my mind. I would have never known that unless if I came here and actually participated in this. So for you guys, this is the first start of you being exposed to more than just whatever you see on TikTok or wherever else. Some of you guys don't use that. But this is the first start. The best thing you can do is to then build on that and continue to explore and look for other ways for you to actually enrich your lives by way of service.
I would say play to your strengths. So if you are great at social media, like the TikTok reference, but if you're great at social media, there are so many nonprofits that need help with their social media. If you love cooking and you love trying new recipes, you can work with a food bank to say what food items are you going to be giving in the next week and come up with recipes that they could include with those bags. If you love drawing, there's nonprofits that need help with a new logo. Like, there are things that you can do right now that you don't have to go sign up for something that already exists or recreate the wheel, right? There's things that you are good at that we need your help with in different nonprofits. So just think, outside the box, but also really just think about what do you like to do, because that burnout thing does happen, and so you want to be playing to your own strengths and find a passion that you really care about.
As the last three speakers have said, less of advice is just more of a challenge. Challenge yourself to be malleable, to be that autodidact, to be the person that is always willing to learn more about your communities. Bring stuff to your communities, but also be willing to learn from your communities to help your communities. You can bring all you want to the communities, but unless you're willing to learn who you're working with, what you're working with, and how to work with it, such as networking, it's going to be a little challenging for you. Challenge yourself to do something out of the norm. Challenge yourself to, okay, I see somebody struggling. Let me see how I can help them improve whatever situation they're in. It starts small, and it works its way up. Then the word gets out. People start seeing what you're doing. Okay, cool, all right, he gave somebody a water bottle at the store. Let me do that too. And that's how we slowly and progressively change the communities in which we're in.
And to add to that, I would say that the scope of your service work doesn't have to be broad. It can be very focused and isolated. If you see a problem with the amount of water bottles not being recycled on your campus every day, that could be a problem that you attack. You will find so much nonprofit work is based on gap filling. What is being done? What should be done? There's a big gap that's not being filled. How can I find a space to fill that? So it can be very simple. Individual service to community doesn't have to change the world. It will if we're all doing it. But your piece can be small. It doesn't have to be larger than you can imagine. And there's value and benefit and joy in completing that small but important needed thing.
Stole my answer. Mine was going to be is to, again, start small. Like all of you here are on this campus, and you can get involved right here. Your community doesn't have to be necessarily, I'm going to say, outside the black fences, because we have black fences circling our campus. It doesn't have to be outside the black fences. It can be, right? And it should eventually. But if, like everybody's on this panel is saying, start small. Start with something that you're passionate about, because every one of us on this panel right now are passionate about what we do. And it might have been our first job, and it might be our last job, right? That we found that we are super passionate about, and that's what we ran with, and we're sticking with, and we're gonna do it. I'm gonna do it for the rest of my life. I'm sure everybody up here is gonna do it for most of their lives as well. But let's just start small, and again, get involved on campus, whether it's in a club, on a team, helping recycle on campus, putting more recycling bins out, whatever it is, painting murals, right? Maybe doing music at lunchtime, right? Things like that, are all good parts of just, again, what I'll go back to kind of my mission and vision is adding to the total enrichment of your school, your community. Like that's what we should all be striving for, to help build our community up from the ground up.
I want to thank you all for sharing the advice for the kids, especially, I know in a lot of our classes we've talked about how divisive things seem in the world right now, and hearing repeated this message of looking local, looking small, seeing what you can do, and then taking action to make the world a better place so this becomes a more positive experience for everyone. Like hearing that message echoed was really impactful and empowering. Let's go ahead and give our panel a hand. And I'm going to ask all of you to take 1 minute, turn to a partner near you, and see if there's a question that somebody would like to ask. We have time for a couple of questions, so turn to a partner and see if there are things that we want to ask today.
Sharon, do you have another mic down there? Just kidding. You each take a row.
All right, I'm looking for a couple of questions, so please raise your hand. Right here, Mr. Rouse, get your mic.
Thank you for coming. How are you all able to take that first step, as it may seem extremely stressful and even paralyzing sometimes? So I just want to know what you guys may do that enable you to take that step and to start invoking that change.
I think the biggest thing that it can be scary, and it was scary. My first year as an athletic director, I probably had no idea what I was doing, and I like the expression I would say is flying up by the seat of my pants, right? It's just again, like I was saying, as a lifelong learner, right? You just keep learning the job, you keep doing better. If you're working on a project, you go back and you reflect on that project, and then you use what ran really well, what didn't, right? And then you take those aspects and then you kind of continue on and you keep building on. And if you are running that project over and over and over again, you just keep adding to your recipe, right? To make it the best meal that you can out there, so.
In high school, I was in the Interact Club. Do you have an Interact Club here? It's part of a Rotary, but it's the high school level. Do you have a Key Club, something like that? Okay, so I was in Interact, which is a lot like Key Club, and the mission of Rotary is service before self. So I was about 14 when that phrase was sort of started into my brain, and that's what launched it really for me.
What inspired me in my community, especially back home, was everybody had something to say, but nobody was doing anything. So I wanted to leave that norm behind, and I wanted to actually take those steps and be that inspiration to myself that, hey, even though there's 400 kids still doing nothing, let me do something real quick, and maybe that inspire other people, and so on and so forth.
I would just say to start scared. Start when you're not totally prepared, because you can get caught up in that analysis paralysis of just, it's not perfect. The logo's not perfect. My plan's not perfect. When we started our first session of Renew, we used to say we were building the plane while flying it, because every night we were tweaking it. We were changing the curriculum. We were tweaking the tests. We were figuring out a better way. At the end of our first session, we got a note from one of the students that thanked us for the session, but said that the most important part of our entire program for her were the granola bars in the morning, because we fed them lunch every day and we had granola bars in the morning, and it didn't even occur to us that they weren't eating. They didn't have any food for dinner, and it's very hard to study when you're hungry, really hungry. So the granola bars was a big deal. So we had to we shifted. Now we serve breakfast and lunch, right? But we are always changing. So it's never going to be perfect. You just got to start.
Always include food. No, I love this question because in the process of you asking it, I could see how like nervous you were, and like I kind of like imagined myself there because I was there. And I remember the thoughts I would have. What if it doesn't work? What if I embarrass myself? What if it's bad? What if they don't really want it? All these what ifs, and it always tends to go negative. So something I do for myself is, first I minimize it. What if it goes good? What if it goes great? What if, this is the one thing that person needed to be able to actually get to the next step? And for me, when I start thinking like that, then it makes it easier for me to just take that first step. After I take that first step, it's all downhill from there. But those thoughts usually come right before that first step. So your biggest challenge, your biggest obstacle is going to be right before that first step. So if you can get through that, the rest of it, it's not that it's going to be easy, but it'll at least make sense.
I think for me at the beginning, this project would have been a lot more intimidating and scary if I actually knew what I was getting into. I was inspired by something I saw on Facebook, and it started because I just put out one little post on my own Facebook, and it said, hey, for the month of November, I'm going to collect and fill purses with essentials if anybody has anything to add to the mix. So in 2015, in the month of November, I did 75. The next November, I did 150. The next November, I did 815, then 2450, then 5,000. So it just kind of organically grew. So you kind of don't even really know what it's going to take. But it was just as simple as a little Facebook post. And that's, I cleaned out my best friends and my family's closets the first year. And the next year, it was their friends and families. And it's all just word of mouth. And it kind of just accelerated and turned into its own life form that I'm just along for the ride at this point.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. So I'm looking for one more volunteer. Go ahead.
So I have a question for Julie specifically. It seems like you've sacrificed a lot of your time for your organization, and I'm curious, do you have something outside of that organization to help sustain yourself, or does your organization take up all of your time?
Well, the good thing about purses is they can wait for me. I have a friend that runs an animal sanctuary. That's her nonprofit, and that's a way different animal than, purses don't need to be fed or anything. So because nobody pays me, the good thing is nobody can fire me. So I work when I can and when I can get help, and sometimes I have to just sit on it for a couple weeks. I actually did start a part-time job this year because I had been doing this full-time for so long, but it doesn't pay the bills and my kids are eating more. So it is, I don't know, it's a struggle to keep it going, but it's just a matter of me wanting to keep doing it, I guess. Does that answer your question?
All right, we are getting close to the end of our time today. So I wanted again to, first of all, thank you as audience members for your willingness to be here, your rapt attention during our speakers' presentations. And I also wanted to let you know how excited the English 12 team is to see what you guys do. We have such faith and confidence in your ability to make change in your communities, and we are very, very, very excited to see what things you do to make that difference. Let's give our audience, or our participants, one more hand today. Thank you again. You guys can go ahead and pack up your things and start heading back to class so that you're able to get to second period on time. Have a wonderful day.